4,000 pounds of frog legs.
Where do they come from? Gator World?
From frog.
South Florida. Y'all ready?
Well, you know that though, right?
All right. Before we go off track, I'll call the meeting to order. I'll call the meeting of Tuesday, January 7th to order. If everybody will please rise, we'll have a moment of silent reflection, followed by an invocation by Dr. Christina Moore, the senior pastor at Rhema Apostolic International Deliverance Center, and then the pledge by myself.
Oh, we all did the pledge?
I'll do the pledge.
She'll lead the pledge.
I'll lead the pledge.
She had to do it by
Silent
herself.
reflection.
Simmer down.
Good morning, good morning. Happy New Year, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you again to do the opening prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. We thank you for your loving kindness that you have bestowed towards us, upon us, Father. We thank you, God, for doing exceedingly and abundantly above all we can think and ask for you are our everlasting Father, that you said your mercy and goodness follow us, Father. We repent for every sin of commission. We repent for every sin of omission. Father, we thank you for blessing our families spiritually, naturally, mentally, emotionally, physically, Father. We thank you for doing what only you can do. We thank you for healing our lands. We thank you, God, for releasing your blessings, your overflow. We thank you for causing unity to abound even more. We thank you for binding up discord, rage, anger, bitterness, Father, unforgiveness. We thank you for releasing forgiveness, love, unity, and oneness within our community, oneness within our homes, oneness within our family, oneness within the world and the nation. For you said in the Psalms 24, the earth is yours and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell in it. And because we're in your earth and we dwell in it, we thank you for being the loving Father that you are. We thank you for bestowing unmerited favor and advantageous grace, that it will increase upon us even the more. Give us the right decisions to make that will bring unity. Give us the right decisions to make that will bring prosperity, not just for our homes and our towns, but for our nation and this world. And we forever carefully give you the glory, the honor, the power, and dominion that is due unto you. In Jesus' name, Selah, and it is so.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
All right. All right. The first item on our agenda is any additions or deletions, gentlemen?
Madam Chair, move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no proclamations or presentations, so we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We have the meeting.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
move to approve October 1, October 8, and October 15 minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There are a couple of informational items included. And then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything from consent? Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move on to constitutional officers. The first item is the Indian River County Supervisor of Elections, seeking approval to roll revenues received. Welcome, Leslie.
Madam
Always a
Chair, move
pleasure.
approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, a second by Commissioner Zork. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Just Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for your approval.
No problem. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to public hearings. We have a public hearing for amendment to section 100.03, amendment or repeal of ordinances of chapter 100, general provisions of the Code of Indian River County codifying publishing the ordinances to readopt the code up to and including supplement 133.
Thank you very much. Per statute, all counties are required to maintain a current codification of all ordinances. Such codification must be published annually by the Board of County Commissioners. The attached ordinance updates the code to reflect the most recent supplement published within MuniCode in our ordinance code. County Attorney's Office simply recommends that the chair open up the public hearing, take any comments, close the public hearing, and that the board approve the ordinance as presented. And I'm available for questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Joe, that would be you. We need comments and stuff.
Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen, what is your
Move
pleasure?
staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the 2020 New River County Legislative Priorities. Welcome, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy New Year, everybody. In your packet, you have the proposed 2020 legislative priorities for Indian River County. Session starts next Tuesday, January 14th. These priorities, they include some specific priority areas that staff was directed to pursue related to the higher speed passenger rail safety measures, and that is Senator Mayfield and Representative Tyler Soroy's bill. We have a biosolids priority to prohibit the land application of Class B biosolids in the county. We have a recycling priority to modify the state's recycling goal, and also to create a working group to identify areas where we can improve and where as counties and the industries can work together on that. We have the Wabasso Bridge, proposing to rename it to the A.B. Michael Bridge, with the county boundary change with St. Lucie County. And then after those specific priorities, we have some guiding principles and also a priority to ensure that the legislature doesn't infringe on any county home rule authorities. And so by approving this, you give the authority to go to Tallahassee and advocate for and against these issues.
Is there any questions on the legislative priorities or comments? No? Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? No? All right, then we probably need a motion.
Move to.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to Public Works. Our first item is a sole source approval for Traffic Management Center upgrades. Welcome, Mr. Spierka.
Morning, Commissioners. Rich Sperry, Public Works Director. What we have today is the sole source for our Traffic Management Center. Back in 2007, when the Traffic Management Center was built, it was utilizing two sets of software to monitor over 157 traffic signals. We have 109 closed-circuit TVs that allow us to monitor the intersections for traffic issues and to adjust timings and things like that when there's accidental or heavy volumes of traffic. We also have 55 flashing beacons that we monitor using our traffic system. Back in 2007, when we built this, we had a video software that was compatible with XP software, which hasn't been supported by Microsoft in since 2014. We've been moving it along, but it has come time that it's time to upgrade into a digital world rather than an analog world. The software that we currently use that we're proposing is Econolite Centrax. It's an advanced CCTV software that is compatible with the Econolite systems that we use now for our cameras. Basically, right now we have Econolite as a sole source for cameras. We use this information. We use the videos, like I said, to control our signals. We can adjust timings and things like that. So we're moving forward to replace that so we can now use Windows 10 as an operating system rather than XP. We're also moving forward with upgrading our monitors. The monitors we currently have are analog monitors. We're going to upgrade to digital monitors on our video wall. It's going to give us more clarity to the intersections. It's going to allow us to just monitor more intersections. As the county grows, we have more intersections that we monitor daily. We staff the management system, we watch for problems, and again, we can adjust as needed on a moment's notice once we understand what's going on at the intersections. So with that, funding is available in the amount of $246,276. It's programmed into our CIE from districts 1, 2, and 3. And we have a training expense of $10,026. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners waive the requirements for the bid for the traffic management upgrade at a cost of $256,302 and declare Econolite Systems as the county's sole source provider for any subsequent maintenance, repairs, or upgrades of the Centrac system, CCTV, video monitoring walls, and associated hardware and software related to the traffic management system. Staff also recommends the board authorize the purchasing division to issue a purchase order to Econolite Centrac Systems, associated equipment, and software as needed.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, good morning, Rich. With this software program, I know currently we do not intentionally record any activity at any of our lights, but in the future, if that ever is something that desired, would this software complement that or integrate with something like that?
The software would allow it, but the hardware would not. We don't have the capacity to do that. So if we were ever to decide we wanted to do that, the first thing we'd have to do is get a large server in order to maintain that. But we do not record intersections, any video. It's strictly you see it and it's gone.
Right, okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was one of my questions. But the other question, Rich, is, are these the same cameras that the New England Patriots use to spy on the Cincinnati Bengals?
I hope not.
Actually, I believe they used a Nikon with a very good zoom lens when they were in Cleveland.
My apologies, Madam Chair. It was too much
It
of
was
an
well.
easy
It was a
layup,
well-placed comment, so I'll let it slide.
Can you check the pressure of a football with that?
Any other comments related to this item for Mr. Shapiro?
He's not wearing his uniform.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the next item is a 58th Avenue corridor study.
All right, what we have is 58th Avenue. We have a scale report. Basically, it's a report that is necessary in order for us to obtain right away when we are not able to come to an agreement with the property owner. Waterway Village entered into an agreement with the county to four-lane 58th Avenue from just south of 49th Street up to 53rd Avenue, or 53rd Street. Subsequently, the board approved to continue widening 58th Avenue from 53rd to north of 57th. But as part of the Waterway Village agreement, the county was tasked with obtaining the right-of-way necessary for Waterway Village to construct their four-lane section of the project. County staff has been diligently trying to obtain all the right-of-way, and we've run into a issue with a certain property that we were not able to come to an agreement with. So as such, we've had the scale report put together by Kimley Horn and Associates that allows us to analyze 5 major factors. We analyze safety, cost, alternative alignments, long-range planning, and the environmental considerations. Basically, the scale report looks at all these factors to see if there's a way that we can construct the roadway safely without having to impact or purchase right away. What the evaluation has found is there's 4 alternatives. There's a no build. We can move. We can just not widen the roadway. We can build it to widen everything to the west. We can widen everything from the center, and we can widen to the right or to the east. It's recommended that we widen to the east of the existing roadway. This is one of the reasons is due to the existing utility poles. Funding is not necessary for the report. However, we did expend $15,970 to have the report done out of our 58th Avenue widening budget. Staff recommends the board approve the 58th Avenue Corridor Study Scale Report for the segment of 58th Avenue from 47th Street to a quarter mile north of 49th. I erred in my recommendation and I needed to change it.
Okay. Is there any questions for staff on this? Yes.
Yep.
Commissioner.
Rich, I was looking at the cross sections of the proposed widening. Will there be bike lanes in here? I saw there was like a 5-foot paved shoulder, but it didn't identify it as a bike lane.
Let me check with Bill Belichick on that. I'll let
Okay.
you know.
All right.
Yes, there's
Thank you.
gonna be bike lanes.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Zork.
Yes, and look at the last thing you just mentioned, to make sure I heard it right, that you adjusted the quarter mile south of 49th Street,
North of 49th.
north of 49th. But this study's only really kind of the south of 53rd, past 49th. And where I'm going with this, we have the Providence Bay. I don't know what was in their original PD tentative approval. I don't know what effects that might have on corridor widths, and then now you have I think a week or two or not too long ago, Planning and Zoning approved a significant project on the north side of 53rd at 58th. I just want to make sure we don't have to come back and go through this again. If both those projects continue to move forward, will we have enough width to accommodate what those needs might be?
Yes, the scale report was basically took into account what we needed. What we have is Providence Point has an agreement with the county, and we're in the process of obtaining the 10-foot strip on 49th Street and the corner clip we need from Providence Point. On the north end, where the Mandela Bay was just approved, we have the right-of-way necessary for that as part of old agreements with Mandela Bay and with Providence Point, who actually donated all the right-of-way, used to own that property to the north of 53rd.
Right.
We have the right-of-way that is necessary. The roadway fits in everything we have, except for this one area where we need to acquire. That's why we put the scale report. We narrowed it down to just this section so that we could save cost.
Right, okay, great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? No? Any questions from the public? All right, gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
Move approval.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is an unconditional offer for a parcel of right-of-way located at 4740 58th Avenue. Mr. Spierka.
All right, to go along with the scale report, we have Paulette Brown owns basically a 1-acre parcel just south of 49th Street. It's part of the widening. We need to acquire about a 0.22 acre parcel in the front from her. The property's improved. It's got a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home, about 2,000 square feet. And we have been negotiating with Mrs. Brown for the last 18 months, trying to come up to an amicable agreement between us and her for either purchasing the entire property or for just purchasing the right-of-way that we needed. We were unsuccessful, and the recent appraised value of the entire property is about $220,000. And a partial take of the right-of-way, which is what we're moving forward with, is basically $44,516. That includes the property and includes severance damages. Staffing, we've talked to Mrs. Brown, we've talked to their attorney, David Holloway, and we've tried to come up with a reasonable offer. The county attorney's office, Bill DeBraw, and I discussed this, and we came up with what we believe is a reasonable offer of $51,193. Subsequently, we had a staff meeting with Mr. Brown, and we were discussing the way that the process works. It may be to our benefit to increase this number. We went back and we kind of looked at it. We're looking at right around 70,000. The reason being is the way, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason being is when we go to eminent domain, there's the attorney's fees are basically paid on what we offer to what they settle on. It's that difference between the two. We're trying to be fair with the property owner, and we're trying to limit our costs to what we're going to end up paying the attorneys for the process. So we discussed this internally yesterday, and we believe that 70,000 is probably a good way for us to make it limit our costs if we go to the eminent domain process. One last thing is that as we were negotiating with Mrs. Brown, she had a fire in the kitchen, and it was the kitchen and one of the rooms was pretty much destroyed, and they're moving forward with, they've obtained a demolition permit. So it looks like they're going to be demoing the house, and Lifestyle Homes is going to be building a new home there for her. So I just want to bring that to your attention. We found out this just before Christmas time. So with that, we have fundings available in the 58th Avenue account, optional sales tax for this number that we settle on for an offer. Jason, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, just that the higher offer, we believe, might be a better strategy for moving forward with eminent domain. What we do in a lot of the negotiated agreements we have is we contemplate what might happen if we go to trial at eminent domain. And as Rich had said, basically the outside attorney's fees for the person who we're acquiring property from, their fees are based on the differential between the unconditional offer that we are planning to make today and what the final judgment is. So if there's a larger gap there, there's a larger fee for that outside attorney. So a couple things. A, we're hoping to reduce that amount, and B, also it's a better strategy to kind of incentivize maybe some kind of agreement before going all the way through the process, where again, as a reminder, we pay not only our expert witness fees, we pay for the expert witness fees and all of the fees for the person whose property we're acquiring. So for that reason, we're recommending something which is more than the 15% here. That's will hopefully disincentivize everyone to go through the entire process there. And if we do go through that process, hopefully limit the amount of the fees that we do pay. And it's also in line with the board's general policy in the past that we'd rather pay the property owners a little bit more than pay all of the attorneys and the industry that surrounds the whole right-of-way acquisition area, rather than paying those outside property appraisers and the outside attorneys, directing more money towards the property owners. So for that reason, we're recommending the slightly higher amount of $70,000. That's all.
So based on that, staff recommends the board approve an unconditional offer to purchase the necessary right-of-way from Mrs. Brown at a price of $70,000 rather than the original $51,193.
Gentlemen, are you have any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I have one. And this probably is more of a Bill question, and just for the public to know, when we go through a traditional takings case like this, when you combine both sides, expert witness, attorney's fees, et cetera, clearly that cost would greatly exceed many times over the difference between the 51,193 and the 70. But historically, what have we seen in fees when we've gone through these? I know they're quite expensive.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill DeBrawl on behalf of Indian River County Attorney's Office. Yes, Commissioner Zork, usually our fees alone are around $30,000 by the time we hit mediation. After we have filed suit, paid the filing fees, hired our appraiser, our land consultant, and the engineer all, it's usually about $30,000 on our side. It's usually a little bit more on the other side as well. So you're talking about $60,000 before you even hit mediation.
Right. So this would be great if we could bring this to some type of conclusion with Ms. Brown with this new offer.
Agreed.
Madam Chair, we always, whenever we approach the possible taking of someone's property for a project, it's becomes uncomfortable, and I don't think anybody here has ever shown any comfort or less than passionate feeling for this action to take place. Nobody really wants to engage in it. We've talked with the Browns, and by chance, are they here today?
No, Commissioner, they are not here.
They are not here today.
Brown is not here, no.
It's just, it's an awkward feel, and as I said earlier, but in addition, the amount of understanding as to cost avoidance in the future and why not give it to them now, I wholeheartedly approve and have so in the past. It's just, I hope they understand that you've gone to the value in which we can, and if we go back to having to go to court, it's going to be, it could be as costly, if not costlier, but by the same token, it's not going to be funding for them. It's going to be funding for so many other experts. So I support that.
And gentlemen, did you have any comments or? Okay. Anybody from the public have any comments? Seeing none, gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, the next item is a request to waive bid process for caustic soda chemicals.
Move staff recommendation.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by Commissioner Zork.
Nice
All in-
presentation, Vinnie.
It was a great presentation, Vinnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
He's our best.
He is. All right. The next item is under My Matters, and it's a resolution in support of Florida Forever. The Pelican Audubon Society asked if the Board of County Commissioners would be supportive of passing a resolution, which is attached, expressing support for restoring funding for the Florida Forever Fund to its historical levels. I just wasn't sure how you guys felt about that, so I wanted to bring it up and get your input, if that's something you.
Move to pass the resolution.
All right, I have.
I'll second that for discussion.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Zork. Yes, Commissioner Zork.
Yes, which, I know at times the historic number has been 300. I think currently it's about the $100 million number. Which kind of historic time frame period are you looking at?
If you'd like to come up, Dr. Carlson. Clarify that. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Graham Cox. I'm at 1213 George Street in Sebastian. Historically, way back, it was 300, and then it was cut down to 100, and then it was cut down to 33, and we're now trying to get it back up to where it should be, the 300 level. There is about 4 times that amount in the fund that was set aside. The term is slipping out of my head right now, but there's a, I think it's a stamp tax or whatever it was.
The docs.
Docs tax. Age is a wonderful thing. But that was, there's a lot of money on that, and it's been, the Amendment 1 monies have been misused so far. When that was passed in 2015 and 2016. They've siphoned that off, and they've essentially undermined the purpose of that Amendment 1 stuff.
And while he's there, maybe the second question I have he could answer, because I don't know the answer to this. But the funds that come into to this Florida Forever is a portion of, or a percentage of funds that come into the agency in general. So I don't know if we need to address the percentage of that, because right now I think it's 10% of what comes in at the top ends up in Florida Forever, but I'm not sure if that's the right formula that they're
What
using.
you mean by Florida Forever would take about 1/3 of the total from the dock stamp stuff, as I understand it. But I'm not sure how it relates to the agency funding system.
Okay, maybe probably just the historic level will be
Yes.
sufficient.
The resolution indicates the historic allocated 300 million annually.
And Madam Chair, just maybe to clarify it further, under the resolutions, the first one, the board encourages the Florida legislature to fund the Florida Forever program at its historical levels, and maybe just add the wording of 300 million a year, or annually or something.
Okay.
That way we define what we're really asking for.
That sounds good.
And I'd amend my motion to include that wording.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Solari.
Just to be a little contrary today,
A little?
a little, yeah, I'm not, this, I'm just fairly,
Unique opportunity?
haven't really heard from the other side of this. And so it makes me a little bit leery to go forward. And thinking about this made me realize that there's some tensions between participatory democracy and representative democracy, which gives me some cause for concern. And then there's the fact that local governments don't like the state telling us what to do. And I get hesitant then as a representative body, telling them what to do. I understand perfectly well citizens wanting to stand up and say, listen, we voted for this and doing it. So I just have those hesitancies, and no great feeling against it, but just to represent the other side, I'm going to go ahead and vote against it today.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up, is to get everybody's input into it, so. Any other comments?
Just one, just out of curiosity, I looked up, and these aren't directly tied together, but a lot of people go, well, how much of our local land or state land is owned in public? And I'm not sure if this chart is correct, but about 30% of Florida is currently in public benefit. I think we always have to be careful of how, you can't put everything in public because then you have nobody left to pay the taxes to fund operational of government. But Florida has made in the past, we just got to get them back on the right track for funding, but we have about 30% on this chart indicating in public land ownership, and then locally we exceed that number. So,
Significantly.
yes, we do.
And we take the position we should be proud of that, but maybe you don't. I'm so sure you do.
Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? No? All right, seeing none, we do have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Solari dissenting. We will move on to Commissioner Solari's matters. The first one is use of glyphosate.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So today I'd like to discuss glyphosate a little bit. Glyphosate is commonly known is the main material herbicide commonly known by people as the main ingredient of Roundup. And Roundup has been in the news a lot in the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, there was a large glyphosate article in the Wall Street Journal just this morning. And I'll begin by saying that I'm not going to make any clear condemnation of glyphosate. The World Health Organization says it's a probable cancer causer, but the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection says that it's safe to use, and it has certainly been a very valuable tool in the agricultural industry. That said, it has been used significantly for the last years, and there are environmental concerns, and I wanted to discuss those some with the board, but as I was going through in the last couple of weeks, talking to some of our staff about the use of glyphosate, I've found out that in the last year, we've moved significantly away. So also knowing that as a commissioner, I wasn't aware of how far we've moved away from the use of glyphosate. I realized that a lot of the public who has concerns about glyphosate probably would be unaware of the same thing. So basically what I want to use my matters for today is just more education than anything else. And I believe at the end of the education, I'll probably see if the board wants to encourage staff to do more wherever practical, but that's probably as far as I'd like to go today. But I believe Rich Speaker is going to enlighten us some on the use of glyphosate by the Road and Bridge Department and how we've moved away from it over the years. And so, Rich, if you can enlighten us, I'd appreciate it, please.
Absolutely. So when this came up, I met with staff and we made a determination that as of October 1st, 2019, we stopped using glyphosate or Roundup. Over the last 5 years, we averaged about 160 gallons of Roundup a year. And in 2019, that was down. We purchased 80. We only used 55 before we stopped using it at all. We subsequently got rid of what was left, safely, I might add. But we do not use it Roundup anymore in the entire department. We have gone to several things. One of the things we're doing at Osprey Acres is that we're trying a combination of dish soap, salt, and vinegar to do the removal of weeds. We got this from the ag department, Department of Agriculture across the street, and it works 50–60% of the time. We're playing with it, but we were concerned of using chemicals in the area of the Osprey Acres Park, brand new. We wanted to keep, so we're trying natural ingredients to try to get rid of the weeds. What we're finding is it gets rid of most of it. It doesn't get the vines and the hardies type of weed, but it's working pretty good. In the road and bridge section, we've gone to mechanical removal of vegetation on all of the canals. We don't do the spraying that you see. People think it's, we see a truck along a canal and they're spraying, and we get complaints, and we try to educate, this isn't the county. This is either a municipality or a water control district or something like that. We're trying to get the word out there. We don't do the mass spraying anymore. We use mechanical means. If the vegetation needs to be done, we use the mechanical means. The board has been allowed us to purchase equipment where we can reach across the canals and get the debris that's in the canals, and the vegetation that's in the canals, so that would block drainage during times of heavy rains and hurricanes and things like that. So we have Road and Bridge completely moved away from it. We do use a weed killer under guardrails. We use Tribune right now. We think it's the best that we could find that's as best you can environmentally safe. We did a lot of research on it. My facilities department uses it in weed beds and things like that. We have also, just so you know, we have contractors. We do not allow our subcontractors who do some of our islands and stuff, we do not allow them to use glyphosate either. We make sure that we are basically, for lack of a better word, glyphosate free in the Public Works Department. So we continue to try. We're using, trying to use different mixes of vinegar and salt and things like that to try to get rid of it and keep the weeds under control, but also make sure that we can be as friendly to the environment as possible.
Thank you very much. Interesting, you mentioned the Tribune. A week ago, I was walking through Memorial Island, and there was a city worker spraying around trees and guardrails, and I stopped and had a conversation with him, and I thought he might have been using glyphosate, and it turned out he was also using Tribune, that the city of Vero Beach had also moved away from the use of glyphosate, which is a great thing. And really importantly, in the conversation I had with him, he talked a lot about the safety precautions they still used, which I think was an excellent thing. So I thought it was great, being a city resident, that the city was using Tribune and that the workers were as good and careful about it. So that was, for me, a very sort of positive thing first thing in the morning. But thank you very much, Rich. I don't know if anybody has any questions of Rich before we go on.
Yes, Rich, before you go too far. To plug, and I may not have the name right, but just as an alternative, there's a local company that makes a saltwater, I believe with vinegar, weed killer that's completely natural, no harmful effects. It's under Dr.
Rudy Kirshner.
Yes. He sells it all around the country, and it's a great way to control weeds. Every time I try to go get it, it's sold out, which is good for him. But there are some locally manufactured products here that are completely, I guess you'd call that natural based.
We'll look into it.
I had the opportunity, sitting on the curb board, to work with Dr. Rudy Kirshner, and I did try that product, and it did work very well. So it compelled me, when I got county water, I had an abundance of softener salt. So I used over-the-counter vinegar with salt and just a little bit of dish detergent, Dawn, I believe I used, or Joy, and it works very well. It works better in the warmer weather than the colder weather. It's, for some reason, it doesn't react as well, so maybe that's one of the issues. And I have now I have safe control and an abundance of softener salt. So if you convert to county water, you have plenty of weed killer.
Thank you. Anything else for Rich?
Thanks for Dr. Kirshner.
Mr. Zito?
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. There are other divisions that have traditionally used the product. In over 40 parks, it has been eliminated entirely. At Sand Ridge Golf Club, it has been eliminated in its entirety. In fact, Sand Ridge Golf Club was most recently recognized by the Audubon Society in November of 2019 for best management practices and environmentally sensitive land management. The one area that it does remain is in our conservation lands program, and there it is used as a default treatment, and it's used very strategically and surgically when necessary, and in cooperation with FWC's management program, and funded, in fact, by the state. So Beth Powell is here, and Kevin Kerwin, Parks Director, for additional details if you would like to discuss that further. But we are, I believe, down or at about a level of 47 gallons a year, and that is for the entire county's conservation lands program.
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just a further discussion, and since Kevin is here, we're not using that on any of our ball fields or
No, sir, not in the park system at all,
at all.
with the exception of the conservation lands program, which is a subdivision of the Parks Division of General Services.
Right, but nowhere where children play or they're exposed or may be compelled to pick up something they've dropped to eat, and that's just not happening.
And I'm assuming that when it is used strategically, it's to meet those management plans that are required for your conservation lands, correct?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Kevin Kerwin, Indian River County Parks. If I can answer Commissioner Vice Chair Flesher's question first. We went to hose, so we're using those triangular hose to pull up weeds now, so we're not using
way.
the old-fashioned build up your arm way. So
Good.
And then we've tried, just like Rich has said, we've tried numerous products with varying degree of success. However, we get in there the old-fashioned way and have to remove it. It's tough. It's tougher. It takes a lot more work, but that's something that we're able to do. But to answer your question there, nothing where children are eating or playing or that type of thing.
Thank you.
And you also have some other really cool, innovative things you're doing, correct?
Yes, we are. They're not hose, but goats. Beth Powell, was a conservation assistant director of Parks and Conservation Resources. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to kind of talk about this a little bit. I'm happy to answer any questions. We have adjacent counties who have had moratoriums or outright glyphosate bans. These kinds of bans and moratoriums really have the potential to harm environmental programs like conservation lands programs like ours. We have 4 staff people now who are all certified through the Natural Areas pesticide applicator's license. I've been an applicator for over 19 years. So we go through rigorous training in order to know exactly which herbicides to use. So I think it's important that the public understand that there's a variety of herbicides that we use, and we use those kind of as a last-ditch effort. So we use integrated pest management program, and that includes things like mechanical treatment and cultural treatment like hoeing or goats. And so using the IPM program, we're able to minimize the herbicide. Herbicide's extremely expensive regardless of which herbicide that you're utilizing. It's a cost to the taxpayers, and so we're always looking at reducing that. We all have the same goal, and the goal is to provide a better environment, and we have invasive exotics that must be treated either mechanically or culturally or with herbicide. And many times these invasives grow so rapidly and they can overtake our natural areas if we're not really working diligently on that. You may see we keep an herbicide binder. The last one that I have, everything that we spray we keep track of, and I go back 3 years because we had a public records request that kind of stemmed us put us into keeping this more rigorously, even though we're not necessarily required to, for instance, for glyphosate use. We are for triclopyr. Triclopyr is an herbicide that we use on Brazilian peppers. So without these tools, I refer to these as tools. Like a surgeon uses a scalpel, we use herbicides. We use it strategically. A scalpel could hurt anybody used the wrong way. We're concerned about not only the environment, but we're also concerned about the applicators and the people that are using it. Like I said, I've been using herbicides for almost 20 years now. But I feel confident that we have enough, if I'm following the label, which is the law, then I'm protected because that's how the herbicide is supposed to be utilized. So if you're not applying it per the label, then you're not protected and afforded those protections. So just wanted to open it up for if you had any questions. Our herbicide use is limited. I mean, we have 2,600 acres. This last year in 2019-20, we have 47 gallons that have been used of glyphosate specifically. Last year was 21 gallons. But the reason for that increase is because we're treating something different. So through the FWC Upland Management Program, where we get a lot of our work, the majority of our work done, it depends on what species we're treating. I have not yet found any herbicide besides glyphosate that is labeled for use, so by law, for use on old world climbing fern. We have significant patches of old world climbing fern now invading our county. We have recently found the Japonicum, which is the Japanese climbing fern, which is not even currently vouchered for our county. So we have new species that are invading our county, and it's one of the parts of integrated pest management is early detection and rapid response. So that's what we're doing when we're seeing these. And there's no other ability to treat that particular species. We have Kogan grass. I think it just stems from a warmer climate. We haven't had a significant freeze in a long time. So we have some of these other plants that you might find more commonly in South Florida starting to come into our county. So it's really important that we respond quickly to these. We also added 2 staff people this year. So we have more bodies. We have doubled our staff, so we have more boots on the ground who are able to get in there. Long term, this would reduce our herbicide use because we're getting in there and we're getting these small patches or moderate sized patches before they get out of control.
Thank you. Any questions for Beth? Or
At this point, I'd like to thank staff both for moving away from glyphosate like they have and applaud their efforts. I think it's great. It's a very positive thing. And I certainly think that where you do use it, it's appropriate. I mean, having invasive species take over our conservation lands kind of defeats the purpose of having conservation lands. And I'd be supportive of, if there were costs on the margin, because there's sometimes weighing if you're going to use a glyphosate or more people, or put in other native plants to try to prevent invasives from coming in. So on the margin, I'd be supportive of increasing dollars for that type of activity, but I certainly believe that you all, both at the Parks and Conservation Lands and with Mr. Speaker's department, have done the right thing, and I certainly, again, applaud that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, Madam Chair, I just wanted, and Bob, just wanted to add, Rich brought up something. He said that when he weaned away from using that product, he properly disposed of it. And, I just thought that there might be some folks out there that want to do the same thing in the residential level. And it's the same way as with paint and thinners, and sometimes there's a printer, but what do I do with it? Could residents who have some at home that choose not to use it, they want to go in the vinegar path, could they take that solution and bring it to the convenience centers for proper disposal? Vinnie's here. I just would like to give folks the opportunity. There may be some people listening and want to help all of us and the future citizens.
Yes, the short answer is yes. You can bring it to one of the 5 convenience centers or the landfill to accept the hazardous household chemicals that are no longer used. There should be labels on the back of the container that identify the constituents in the makeup of the weed killer, and glyphosate sometimes is used throughout some of these home products used for residential purposes, so we urge consumers to look at the labeling, and if they need to return that, we can accept those at the convenience centers of the landfill.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity.
While we're on a roll, you could even bring your, unrelated to this topic, you could even bring your kitchen grease for proper disposal. That is lethal to, if you are on a septic tank, you want to save your kitchen grease. And I keep it in a big jar and dispose of it properly. It's another chemical that we don't want it going down the drain. So as long as we're on that subject,
Sure.
I can make you aware of that as well.
Yeah, septic tanks are incubators at times. Yes.
All right.
Leakubators.
Anything else on the use of glyphosate? Yes.
Just, Madam Chair, a couple things for Beth while we have her here. You'd mentioned 4 new employees doing this and that, but don't we have like 20 or 30 new team members out there taking care of exotic vegetation? And want to hear about that new team a little bit.
So we have 4 total in conservation lands, but we also have historically and currently receive assistance from the parks.
I'm talking about the 4-legged team members.
Oh, my 4-legged team members. Yes.
With the... and the...
I don't have pictures. I'm sorry. So you have.
Yeah, I heard you're having babies out there.
Baby.
You're like
We have
rabbits.
2 babies at Cypress Bend. Yes. So, so our conservation area program, because we had the wildfire mitigation funding this year, which is going to be doing a lot of mechanical work, it kind of freed up some contractual services money that we had available. So what we did as an effort to find out whether or not we could use some cultural practices as part of an integrated pest management was we deployed a 10-unit goat herd, and these are the males that are at one of our sites in an area where we did a combination of mechanical treatment, so we mowed, we left some of the area the way it was, and we also using the new Brazilian pepper thrips through the University of Florida was also released there. And we now have monitoring stations, so we'll be watching that area over time. And the question for us really as a pilot project is, can the goats help us reduce the amount of herbicide that we use on a site when we're doing major large-scale restoration? Groves are our most difficult site to manage and to restore for obvious reasons. There's been a lot of land use modification, the soil structure has changed, et cetera. So our question was, instead of having a mechanical or normally what we would do is come in and use mechanical treatment, and then we would start spot spraying with our staff. And using that to control the non-natives that are going to obviously take advantage and grow very prolifically. So far what we're seeing is somewhat promising in that the goats seem to really, well, first of all, they love Brazilian pepper, which is interesting. And they seem to prefer the non-natives like the Caesar weed, Peruvian primrose willow, in this site, Turk's turban. And so they're eating that down, and we're able to watch that section of the site that's being basically chewed down by the goats. We're able to watch that section and compare it to a section where we don't have goats, where all the same, everything else is the same, where we treated with the mechanical treatment, and we're watching that. So it does seem that they prefer the non-native vegetation, which is interesting. However, it does come with a whole host of other issues. For instance, goats are known for not wanting to stay in their pens. So keeping them contained can be difficult, and it's very time consuming. And The goats have to work alongside of a goat herder who's chopping down the Brazilian pepper branches once the goats can't reach them anymore. So it is very labor intensive, but we're really interested to see what happens. We funded the project for 6 months, and then we also wrote a grant to FWC through the Gopher Tortoise program to do the same project on a gopher tortoise site where we can actually see, because mowing presents problems. So if we come through with a bush hog or a mower and we have 2 or 3 tortoises per acre, the likelihood of hitting a tortoise is really high unless you're able to work around things like weather and try to do it when it's cold, but it's still difficult. So again, in that particular project, the question is, can the goats give us an advantage over the exotic species so that we can convert that property without using as much herbicide? So if you guys...
I just think that's pretty neat that we're
too.
we're
I
using
totally
that.
agree.
And I know I've read articles that they've used goats out in California
Yes.
to help shoot down the brush to reduce the wildfire threats and such. So I think it's pretty innovative getting these goats out there and letting them chew around a little bit. So
Yeah.
And then, Madam Chair, if I might, a little segue here, because Kevin and Beth are both here. As you all know, Beth has been working on the updated management plan for Hobart Park, and the county recently completed the installation of a 9-hole disc golf course up at Hobart. And this past Sunday morning, the Treasure Coast Disc Golf Association had their inaugural tournament there, and it was a really great turnout. Kevin was there, and just the feedback from all the members there that were playing, they're very excited about having that course there. They're talking about doing all kinds of tournaments. They want to have night tournaments going on, just really utilize that park. And Kevin and I were talking, this has some really great benefits to the county, because now with a lot of activity going on in Hobart Park, we hope to see a reduction in vandalism and other things going on, because people are going to be there. And just a really great turnout, so I want to give you both a public shout out for a job well done. I think it's very exciting, and everybody there was really enthusiastic about it, so I think it's going to be a good thing. And then another little thing, we have a secret team brewing here on the Park and Recreation guys, because after work they're going over there 3 times a week and honing their skills, and so I think we got some ringers coming along there too, so that's good too. So
Chairman O'Brien, what I'd like to do is challenge you and Susan to a match.
Okay.
Because we just found about this at the party they had up at Parks and Recreation, and 2 days ago, through the good graces of Amazon.com, Jackie and I got a set of discs.
Oh,
and
awesome.
until this, I thought it was basically just one Frisbee, and find out that, well, but I didn't know that. The beginner's set had 4 different discs in it, including some little thing like this big. So right now you've got a strong advantage because I'm clueless on how to use them, but Jackie and I are determined this year to get good. So, if you want to...
I think we should have a whole county commission tournament going here. Bring in, a whole couples tournament with everybody doing this. It's really fun. It's a great little thing. It's just an easy walk. It's not strenuous, so it's great. Yeah. Anyway, Kevin and Beth, thank you for that. I think it's great, and look forward to expanding that program and doing more with it.
Thank you.
And we will run a clinic. So, Madam Chair, if you want to organize that, since you are the chair.
I will play only if the goats can come.
We will put the goats on a leash.
We need a mascot.
We will get the discs out there. We'll get some thrips also. And it really is thank you for coming out, Commissioner. Really, really cool, and a good way to experience nature and have a good time with a bunch of friends. So.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great job. Thanks again.
Guys.
The county commission goats.
They're legendary. Commissioner Solar. Oh, I'm sorry. Gentlemen, would you like to say something?
I'm impressed you guys got your own set. Good stuff. I'm very impressed.
Graham Cox, 1213 George Street, Sebastian. I just want to follow up on what the county folks have said about the use of glyphosate or non-use of it. We've arm wrestled with the city of Sebastian for 4 years to appreciate the fact that they might not be absolutely sure that glyphosate is a problem, but gosh, a lot of people are sure. And so it's time that Sebastian got on the ball and did something rather than spraying Roundup along the canal system. As a result of that, we want to tell you about two public workshops that are going to be held in Sebastian on January the 15th at 6 p.m. and January the 23rd at 1:30 p.m. in the council chambers. These are workshops to be very specific as to how the city should be dealing with both the golf course, the parks, and the canal system. They want specific information. They don't want generalities about glyphosate is bad, because we can't get into that. It's beyond our pay grade to be able to say whether glyphosate is poisonous or not poisonous. But what I'd like to ask of the county is, for those workshops, at least one of them, if the staff could come and say the things that they have said today about what the county is doing. The reason I say that is it seems that Sebastian is sort of in a little hole of its own and doesn't realize that the world around him has discussed this problem, has come up with solutions, has come up with integrated pest and plant management plans, and that there is a way out of their problem without getting all wrapped around the axle. And so if it's okay, I don't know if the county would be willing to say, yeah, we'll have somebody at those public meetings or those workshops and explain what the county is doing and what the county could offer to help them do it. One of the big issues we get with Sebastian is that mechanical equipment is not adequate. It's not going to solve the problem. It can't get to all the place. It sounds to me that the county has figured out how to use mechanical equipment rather than spray stuff. It would be useful to know who has what kind of equipment, or would they be willing to share it rather than the city, or the cities, whether it's Vero Beach or Fellsmere or Sebastian, having to pay out, to buy new equipment. There's opportunities here for, and I hate to say this, there's opportunities here for the city and the county to talk and work together on fixing this glyphosate issue once and for all.
So, Jason, I think since Rich won't be spending any time watching the Patriots in the playoffs anymore, he should have time to attend a workshop or two.
Yeah, we could have some staff go and share what we have done. I will say sometimes our recent communications with the city, that it's sensitive that they sometimes
Well,
it seems like they feel we're telling them how to run the
Right.
city, so I want to be sensitive to that.
We can only build it up.
Jason, you might just have a phone call to the city manager and say that a couple residents from Sebastian came down, listened to our presentation, and asked if we'd offer it, and that you just mentioned to the city manager, we're available if you want us, but, we'll stay home if you don't. But that you're just calling because a couple residents of the city of Sebastian asked us to. So as far as me as a commissioner, I'm fine if somebody from staff goes up there, but
I don't want us to insert ourselves.
Exactly.
If it's not well.
I think that's a great idea. I'd be glad to call.
we're a resource you can use if you want us. If not, fine.
We'd be glad to attend if you would like, and we're available. I'll make that communication.
Well, Commissioner Solari, Madam Chair. Commissioner Solari, and I appreciate Dr. Cox bringing this up. I'm aware of the meetings, live on the canal, and they have been in great debate and penumbra as to what to do. Over the years, they've gone the gamut of sterile carp and a combination of physical approach to the embankments, removing the embankments, but the current sprayer stated that they could not spray the vinegar salt solution or did not have the appropriate equipment, and they are actually looking for any input as they want to do the right thing for the environment, the community, and the problem in which they're confronted with. So I think they would be open. And I don't believe that we would be inserting. We would just be offering some of the solutions if we had them available and be part of the positive process. And it may even have a collateral gain as to our relationships.
The city manager has come to us and said, make sure you get the people there who can give him specifics on how to deal with this issue. So You guys have got specifics. I invite you.
So we'll certainly reach out to them and have that conversation and go from there.
So that you have a reference to the background of this whole issue, Bob Stephen, who is back here, has got copies of a book called Whitewash, which gets into the whole issue. Is glyphosate really a carcinogen? And the Bible that we use for talking about the 60 alternative means of controlling invasive aquatic species comes from the IFAS people, from the state, that lays out what are the 60 alternatives. They always finish up coming down on the side of spraying, but but they've got a good list of all other mechanisms to deal with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth?
If I could, I got a call yesterday from the city of Vero Beach, their public works manager who deals with spraying. I think that we're all dealing with the same issue.
Right.
What herbicides are available, what alternatives are available, what are we using, what have we tried? Instead of going to, for instance, a public meeting, if the administrator and the board wished, the idea came up to create a staff working group because we're all in this together. We have the City of Sebastian, City of Fellsmere, City of Vero Beach, Indian River County. We have working groups throughout our region for land management for natural areas, but it might be helpful if we were all able to sit down and talk about what things that we've tried, because we're all kind of out there bumping into walls in the dark by ourselves, looking at different alternatives with different levels of experience and with also different needs. You know, it's really important to know why you're using an herbicide. Are you using it for a flower bed around a natural area? But it might be helpful if we met as a staff, and then each of the staff people could go back to their respective councils or boards or administrators and provide that information, the recommendation, what we've learned as a group might be helpful. It was something that we were discussing, but it was, not formalized in any way. But I'm happy to coordinate something like that if that was the administrator.
That's a great idea, and I think, though, that we ought to still check with Sebastian if they want us to the public meetings, because the public's got to be brought into this too. And then certainly, having each staff group educate the other groups on what they've done and what works. That's an incredibly important thing, so I'm good with both of them. I think they're very reasonable, and again, the more we can get back to the public on this, I think the better too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
My name is Russell Herman, 586 Redwood Court, Sebastian. I'm talking today representing the Friends of St. Sebastian River. The Friends wants to thank Mr. Solarity and the other county commissioners for being willing to take up and discuss the county's use of glyphosate, a toxic herbicide. Glyphosate is now characterized as a probable human carcinogen by the World Health Organization. We welcome the involvement of the county commissioners and the Indian River County in examining the use of glyphosate-based herbicides in the county. You have a crucial role to play in investigating, in helping us find alternative non-toxic chemicals, and perhaps helping the 3 cities in the city find the dollars necessary to solve this problem. The Friends of St. Sebastian River ask that you consider coming to the workshops in Sebastian so we can collaterally work together to solve this situation. Thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Anybody else wishing to speak on this?
Jean Catchpole, 526 Fiddlewood Road, Vero Beach. I also want to applaud you for studying this situation because it's become a hot topic everywhere. My question is, a lot of cities or water control districts outsource the spraying of weed control products. And I'm just wondering what kind of oversight the control districts might have. I don't know if you have any input into that. I've reached out to the Water Control District. I haven't heard back yet, but that's another avenue. I know that's not your purview, but it is another avenue that we do have to address as far as the glyphosate application. So if you have any input, I'd be happy to hear it.
Well, I think, just from what I understand, the water control districts and water management districts and drainage districts and all those that maintain canals and such, they could tell their subcontractors what products they don't want them to use if they so desire. I would think that'd be a pretty simple thing, and when they sign the contract, they just say, okay, we want you to control the weeds, but you cannot use X, Y, and Z. So it'd be up to those individual boards to make that decision and that commitment. So it might be, when we're talking about getting all the municipalities and everybody together, we should also get the drainage districts and water control districts
That's
as
what I
part
was
of this
gonna suggest.
discussion.
I
'cause
think they need to be included in the education and to see exactly how they feel about the oversight of these outsourced spraying companies.
Right. And I do have a question for Rich or Beth, I don't know. Back in the old days, Roundup was a glyphosate product used on land, upland spraying, and there was a product called Rodeo that was labeled, like, it was a glyphosate product that was labeled for aquatic use. Is that still a viable label now? And is that what they're using, is really the Rodeo, not Roundup?
So different active ingredients are incorporated into what are brands. So for instance, Rodeo is glyphosate, which can be applied in an aquatic environment per the legal label.
Right.
And that's because of the surfactants and the other chemicals that are in the mixture. So in general, the glyphosate content might be somewhere between 25 to 50% of the active ingredient. So it's the other ingredients that are a part of a proprietary formulation that make a chemical labeled safe for use, for instance, in aquatic environment versus a terrestrial application. It is not legal to use the herbicide without it being directed for use. So for instance, if an herbicide is labeled for terrestrial use, you cannot use it in water. Certain aquatic herbicides you can't use in certain situations, for instance, near drinking waters or conveyances. So it's really important that the label is followed. I think one thing that's really important to note is sometimes we don't have alternatives. So on the label, it tells you exactly what you can use the herbicide for. One of the things that we've been facing as a challenge is that, for instance, other counties, if they have a glyphosate ban, they now have no way necessarily to treat old world climbing fern. You can't just convert to vinegar. Weed Farm is a vinegar-based acetic acid herbicide that has a label. It has an EPA registration. And there's caution, warning, and danger labels. And danger is more, highly problematic. You have to use more caution than a caution label. For instance, for our glyphosate product, Rodeo is a caution label, but the Weed Farm herbicide is a danger label. So it's really important that people understand that all of these are chemicals. Even if you theoretically store it under your kitchen cabinet, oven cleaner can be very hazardous too. So just because it's in your home doesn't necessarily make it safe. So I would encourage everybody to read the labels. But yes, we do have aquatic approved glyphosate products. The method of breakdown is what makes those available to be used in an aquatic environment. Many of those are broken down by photolysis as opposed to binding to soil particles. So all of that information is available for every herbicide, and you can dig in and read as much as you like. I think some of the issues stemming from the glyphosate sort of issue is that the proprietary blend, if you will, in particular chemicals, those proprietary agents, first of all, have not been studied and they've not been released. So you don't actually know what you're dealing with. We have some, I've seen some natural products that are not registered with the EPA. They claim that they have an EPA exemption, and there is absolutely no ingredient list on those. I would really encourage users to be very careful about that. If you're using, for instance, an herbicide and you have all of the ingredients or the main ingredient on that, and you have the PPE, what they recommend that you wear, they're telling you exactly how to apply it, what the EPA has said is safe for humans and for animals, use it in that way. But some of these others aren't labeled, and just haphazardly, spraying these without any kind of protection could put yourself at more risk actually than using the other herbicide that's registered with the EPA.
Okay. I just But Rodeo is still an active product available
It
now?
is.
Okay, great,
Yes.
thanks.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you all for having this meeting very, very much. I have one book left in my library. I'd like to donate it to, start with the chair, and she could hand it down. Is that appropriate to give to you? We gave these out to all our council members and Sebastian. We've given quite a few out. I've been working on this for almost 5 years now with Graham Cox. I met up with him in a symposium 1 year, 4 years ago maybe, and he told everybody that I ruined his lunch because I gave him the cocktails description of what they were using. And basically, the lady just before us was talking a lot of big words and a lot of things, and the bottom line is that this is an Agent Orange type cocktail that these people use on these waterways, and nobody's looking. There's an elephant in the room here. There's about 4 feet of muck in the bottom of our deep water canals in Sebastian. Nobody's figuring costs. What's going to cost to get rid of that? My birds are all dead. The last time they hit us, they added Diquat 2,4-D to the cocktail, and it killed everything. And you're all welcome to come to my house at 150 Concha Drive in Sebastian and sit out front and see what's happened. It's devastating what's happened. What is a loss of life worth? I've got 4 guys on my street that are dead from respiratory deals. I've got dogs that are dying. People have got internal problems. Oh yeah, American Medical Association isn't going to jump up to this and say it's they're going to say you had pre-existing conditions. I personally got sick from these chemicals. I won't tell you how, but I can if you come to my house. I don't want to take up all your time. But these are bad things. This is like the drug campaign. Just say no. We can figure this out. Everybody's got this thing, oh, it's labor intensive. Wait a minute. My father said after he got back from World War II, labor is what put the country together. We started putting people to work. I couldn't figure that out, but we put people to work even though we didn't have any money, and all of a sudden we have money. So can't we maybe get some trusted prisoners out here? There are some wonderful new pieces of mechanical equipment, hydraulics or everything, doing these harvesting. And then if we pile it up, dry it out, munch it up, we get paid for it by the federal government. We haven't talked about money here. Federal government, Indian River Lagoon Council, National Estuary Program is offering millions of dollars right now for anybody touching the lagoon to fix it. We've got a problem here. Can't we just stop using poisons altogether? We can. The goats are nice. I love goats. I've had goats. They're a wonderful animal. There are other ways of doing that too. I think because we put man on the moon, I'm not a real high-end guy, but I think we can do this. I don't know why we can't. If you say we can't without chemicals, I think you should reevaluate. Thank you very much for doing this. Mr. Solari, thank you very, very much. I've been working on this for 4 years to get this place. And thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Solari, for bringing this up. And we will move on to your next item, which is Administrative Policy 604.1, Solicitation and Distribution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one won't be nearly as exciting as glyphosate. We do have an administrative policy on solicitation and distribution, and sometimes administrative policy does not keep up with technological change. The suggested changes simply clarify that the distribution of materials prohibited by our solicitation and distribution policy include the use of the county's email system, and that the prohibition includes upper management, that is the commissioners, county administrator, and county attorney. And they're easily added to the administrative policy solicitation and distribution section under comment 3C. Distributions of material dealing with the solicitation are prohibited in the work areas at all times. And with that, I'll make a motion that we make those 2 changes.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Solari and a second from
I have discussion.
Commissioner Flesher. Yes, Commissioner Zork.
So to understand this, right, so if a employee in the building that's participating in a breast cancer awareness activity and wants to invite her coworkers, she could not share that, or he could not share that if this change is made.
Could not use the email system, I would say correct.
And if I'm 4 times a year, help promote a foster care outreach event to the large number of county employees, that would not be permitted as well.
That is correct. I don't believe it's the business of the county system to promote the nonprofits of individual members of the community. There's no limiting principle to it. I mean, we would be buried in emails if we all used the system for that. I regularly give monies to a number of nonprofits, and if I did the same thing to each one of the nonprofits I support, I'd be sending out an email a week. And because I'm a commissioner, most every employee would open it just to see what was in there and have to respond to that, and they would be doing that during working hours. So while we promote a lot of nonprofits with our proclamations, which is fine, I do not believe, and the present county policy is that employees can't do that. So there's no change to that. It just clarifies that you can't do it by email, which is consistent with the spirit of the present policy, and I believe absolutely appropriate.
Well, I'll be voting no on this.
That's fine.
All right, anybody else have any comments on this? Yes.
So how does apply, Jason, like out right here in the reception area, the big table there, there's a lot of different pamphlets and things. Would this now prohibit us from putting out anything related to a nonprofit out there?
People do put things out there on that table. We do clean that out periodically. It's not something we specifically endorse, but have not been vigilant in clearing those areas out from that type of material.
I wouldn't consider that distribution.
Nor
For
does
me,
the change I make today have any to speak to that in the least little bit.
Distribution would be like a person-to-person kind of thing, in my opinion. Any other
Madam
comment?
Chair, one other question. So a person could do a public records request and get every email address for every employee in the county and then just send it from an outside service and accomplish the same goal, and that would be completely legal.
I'm not going to speak to the legality of
Okay.
that. You'd have to ask
Maybe
the county
Dylan
attorney.
can- I find it interesting to hear what our employees are doing and what they're involved in, and I don't have a problem with if somebody's promoting a Men in Pink or a breast cancer awareness activity that they're a part of. I like knowing about those things, and if you run into them, you can thank them for the work they're doing within the community. So, but if there's another mechanism, we'll see what the county attorney comes up with here.
So the general issue is that solicitation on county premises is not allowed as a general rule because it interferes with the normal operations of the organization, is detrimental to the discipline and efficiency on the part of the employees, and is potentially annoying to customers' clients. Therefore, we have several policies in here, one of which, as referenced in the memo, is that the county mail system is not intended for processing, advertising, or sales materials to employees unless the goods and services are related to the performance of their work duties. Materials received in the mail facility which are questionable will be challenged, and the target employee may be asked to have the mailing stopped. What I understand the item is that a similar policy would go in effect for email systems. So if people are using the email system for the distribution of those types of materials that otherwise would be prohibited from going back and forth through the mail system, going between departments or whatnot, then those would not be allowed per the policy.
Okay, and the definition of solicitation, you mentioned something, goods for services for sale, or?
So the overall policy states, I'm not sure there's a definition specifically for solicitation and distribution, but I can say it is the policy of the county to prohibit solicitation and distribution on its premises by non-employees, except that non-employees making solicitation or distribution of materials by a political nature can be done, just can't be blocking. And then it says employee solicitation and distribution of materials may only take place as outlined below, and that's where we have the several policies of where they're permitted to engage in solicitation and distribution of literature, only in according with the following restrictions. Sale is prohibited. Solicitation and distribution of literature are prohibited during the time either the employee making the solicitation or distributions or the target employee is on duty. distributions of material, dealing with solicitation or prohibited work areas at all times. And then obviously we can't be distributing literature which would cause litter on the county property. So I think the concept is whatever is prohibited from going back and forth either through the mailboxes or through our mail distribution system would also be prohibited from going back and forth, just on the email trail.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Counselor, just something came to mind, maybe I'm overemphasizing it, but offering is sale or promotion. So if a 501c3 were to invite us on the internet, on the company mail system, and we would respond, RSVP, that would be, legally, that's a sale or solicitation.
But they're not our employees.
Yeah,
This is only employee to employee.
Yeah, the section about the non-employees was really about not disrupting the workplace, not blocking doors, not blocking entrances, making sure that people could get in and out of the building.
I just wanted to ensure that it did not go beyond that, because some of the 501c3s actually have our employees as employed. So would there be a far-reaching tentacle to that level?
We all receive emails throughout the day, I assume, that come from a nonprofit organization. I wasn't planning to go after any of those folks for violating our policy manual. I think the concept is that if you are an employee of the county and you're doing distribution of items and you were using the email service to try to promote your item, whatever it was, as long as it was not one of the generally authorized fund drives, then that would be prohibited.
I mean, we're already constrained with our email system. If we want to do an announce all, it has to go through IT for authorization, approval, and distribution. So we already have that mechanism on our behalf. So now we can't do an all call without it being verified and filtered.
One of the things I would recommend is that if I had an issue that was important to me, and it was a not-for-profit issue that I was a member of or that I wanted to distribute to other people, I would use my own personal Gmail while I was not at work and send it to other people on their private stuff, emails, and make sure I wasn't using the county as a distribution method.
You've answered both of my questions. Thank you, Councilor.
So, Madam Chair, just to.
So I think we're safe on that.
Yes.
So if you have a county employee that's a volunteer or board member of an organization and they want to extend an invitation and they send it out from their county email, that would be prohibited.
Correct. If they want to send it from their private email to the other employee's private email, that would be fine. And I will just mention that I don't think that there's anything wrong with this. It already applies to mail. Email stands for electronic mail, which just carries it forward. And as a board member of multiple 501c3s, when I'm asked to distribute information, that 501c3 typically has a list of contacts, or I have my own private list of friends and family that I would like to invite, and I send that information from my private email because it is not a county-related thing. I also think that we as commissioners need to be very careful in what we send to other staff, even if it's just informational, because by virtue of our position, it sets up an implied situation where they may feel that they need to participate beyond that because of who we are. So I do the same thing at Marsh Landing with my employees. I'm very careful with what information is posted coming from me or my mom, so they don't feel that we are requesting them to participate as part of their employment with the restaurant. And I think that's what Commissioner Solari is trying to accomplish, and I think we're kind of going down a rabbit hole here and splitting hairs. So there is a motion and a second. If there's no other input, either from commissioners or the public. Anybody wishing to say anything? Then I will go ahead and call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Zork dissenting.
Not bad.
All right, is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none,
31.
we stand adjourned. Thank you.